Imagine being locked inside a solid brass statue. You scream, but the sound doesn't reach the outside. It echoes inside the belly of the beast, turning your cries into the roar of a bull. You're cooked alive slowly. This isn't myth. This was real. And it was designed to make torture theatrical. It looked like a work of art. Gleaming in the Mediterranean sun, the Brazen Bull stood as a gift, or at least that's what Perillos claimed. A master metalworker from Athens, he presented the bull to Phalaris, the tyrant of Acragas, with a twisted sense of pride. Crafted entirely of bronze and polished to perfection, the statue stood tall with hollow insides and a locking mechanism hidden behind its ribbed side. At first glance, it was majestic, but its purpose was a horror that blurred the line between punishment and performance. Perillos had invented a method of execution so cruel, so meticulously designed, that it left even the cruelest rulers shaken. The Brazen Bull was more than just a device. It was theater. Death turned into spectacle. And at the heart of it was a terrifying reality, the human desire not just to kill, but to turn pain into entertainment. The bull was hollow inside for a reason. A man could be placed within it, locked away from the world, and a fire would be lit beneath its belly. As the flames grew, the bronze would heat, and the man inside would begin to burn slowly, agonizingly. But here's where the sadism deepened. Pipes and acoustic chambers were designed near the bull's mouth, so that as the victim screamed in agony, the sound would transform into the bellowing of a beast. To the audience, it sounded like a bull in pain, writhing in fury, but it was no animal. It was a man, a father, a brother, a rebel, a warning. Phalaris was the kind of ruler who embraced fear as a weapon. His rule over Acragas in the 6th century BC was brutal and unapologetic. But even he had never imagined something like this. When Perillos presented the bull, he didn't just describe it, he demonstrated it. He bragged about the mechanics, the elegance of suffering, the transformation of a man's voice into animalistic cries. He believed he had invented the future of state punishment. But cruelty recognizes cruelty. And perhaps, somewhere deep inside, Phalaris felt challenged. Perillos had created something so wicked that it threatened even the tyrant's authority. And so, in a twist soaked in irony, Phalaris ordered Perillos to be the bull's first victim. According to legend, Perillos begged for his life. He protested. He claimed it was just an invention, a tribute. But the guards seized him and dragged him to the beast he had birthed. The doors clanged shut behind him. The fire was lit. And as the bronze heated and his screams filled the chamber, a strange sound emerged from the bull's mouth. Low, animalistic, moaning, roaring. Exactly. As Perillos had described, the executioner had become the executed. But Phalaris wasn't done. He reportedly ordered that Perillos be pulled out before death could claim him completely, only to be thrown from a cliff and finished by gravity instead of fire. It was poetic justice. Or perhaps just vengeance dressed in royal robes. What makes the story of the Brazen Bull so haunting isn't just the cruelty of the device, but the mindset that created it. The idea that suffering could be engineered. That agony could be tuned like music. That death could be modified to please the ears of spectators. It wasn't about justice. It wasn't even about punishment. It was about power. Raw, unchecked, theatrical power. The kind that turns execution into a performance and turns rulers into gods. And the Brazen Bull didn't end with Perillos. Though historians debate how widely it was used, stories suggest that several political prisoners, dissenters, and supposed traitors met their end within its burning belly. The bull became a symbol of state terror, a warning to all who dared defy authority. In time, even Phalaris would face his own downfall. And in a moment of poetic cruelty, he too was said to have been executed inside the very device he had used to enforce his reign. Whether that detail is true or merely legend, the message it carries is clear: tyranny consumes itself. The horror of the Brazen Bull lingers not just because of its design, but because of what it reveals about human nature. We like to think we've evolved, that cruelty like this belongs to ancient times. But every era has its version of the bull, a way to silence dissent, a device to make pain public, an instrument that turns the cries of the powerless into background noise for the powerful. The Brazen Bull is not just a relic, it's a mirror. And if you listen closely enough, you can still hear the echoes of its victims, distorted, roaring, pleading somewhere in the fire. But the most chilling part, the bull was never meant to kill instantly. That was its brilliance. That was its evil. It was designed to prolong, to intensify. The victim inside would cook slowly, the metal absorbing and radiating heat. The body would blister, the lungs would collapse, and the screams would rise, not in minutes, but over hours. The crowd outside would watch, marveling at the sound, never hearing the words, just the noise, the spectacle, the music of misery. This wasn't execution. This was a message, one carved into bronze and echoed across centuries. And though the bull itself may no longer stand in a public square, the idea behind it still haunts every dictatorship, every torture chamber, every regime that believes fear is louder than justice. The Brazen Bull was born in the mind of one man, but it thrived because of the silence of many. No one stopped it. No one questioned it. They just listened. They just watched. Centuries have passed, yet the chilling legend of the Brazen Bull continues to burn in historical memory like the fires that once fueled its belly. It is more than a tale of ancient cruelty. It is a disturbing testament to how far man can go when power outweighs conscience. The bull's story didn't end with Phalaris, nor with Perillos. Instead, it echoed across generations, carried in whispers by survivors, feared by enemies of the state, and remembered by those who understood what tyranny sounds like when it has shaped in bronze and fed with human life. Some believe that the Brazen Bull was a one-time invention, a grim curiosity never truly replicated. Others argue that the device, or versions inspired by it, spread across regions under different names and modifications. While historical evidence is scarce and fragmented, the psychological imprint it left is undeniable. The concept of turning execution into a form of performance art didn't die with Greece. It evolved. It found new shapes in medieval dungeons, in Roman arenas, and even in modern propaganda. The bull was the prototype, the father of fear-based control disguised as justice. The true genius of the Brazen Bull, as dark as it sounds, was that it weaponized sound. Pain is personal, internal. But Perillos, in his madness, transformed internal suffering into external spectacle. The screams weren't just heard, they were altered. They were stylized. They were made to fit the narrative. In the mouth of the bull, anguish became roar. Desperation became animalistic defiance. And that transformation stripped the victims of their humanity. They weren't seen as men anymore. They were beasts. Dangerous, wild, and deserving of fire. That illusion, that shift, is what allowed crowds to watch without guilt. It dehumanized the dying and justified the killing. Imagine standing in that ancient plaza, the sun overhead, the statue gleaming, the fire lit. You hear the first roar. You don't know the man inside. You may not even know why he's there, but you believe the story they told you, that he's a traitor, a criminal, a threat to your city. And the sound you hear is not his suffering, but the voice of justice. This is how propaganda works. This is how cruelty survives. Not through silence, but through performance. Ironically, the very device meant to suppress rebellion became a symbol of rebellion itself. Centuries later, philosophers, playwrights, and historians reference the Brazen Bull not as an instrument of order, But as the embodiment of cruelty gone unchecked, it became a metaphor, a warning, a cursed invention that reminded rulers and citizens alike of what happens when punishment becomes passion, when justice loses its soul, and when fear becomes the loudest voice in the room. It is said that even the screams were not enough to stop it. No one who entered the bull came back to testify. And that silence, that finality, made it even more powerful. It erased the story of the victim and left only the sound behind. That was the point. But history, no matter how scorched, has a way of preserving truth. And in rare fragments, we hear whispers of names. Men accused of treason, women accused of betrayal, anyone who dared to speak against the state. Their records were scrubbed, but their endings remained. All roads, it seemed, led to the bull. As time went on, the bull disappeared from public use. Whether due to changing methods of execution or shifts in political philosophy, its physical presence faded. But its influence endured. In some accounts, Christian martyrs were rumored to have faced similar fates. In other texts, tyrants were overthrown with the help of rebels who cited the bull as the symbol of their suffering. And in rare moments of poetic justice, leaders who once used the bull were consumed by it themselves, literally or figuratively. The very fire they lit became the fire that ended them. One cannot help but wonder what kind of mind it takes to invent something like this. Was Perillos a sadist? An artist? A man desperate for power or favor? Did he truly believe he was serving justice? Or was he simply trying to impress a tyrant with innovation? Whatever his motive, his fate teaches a brutal lesson. Those who create tools of cruelty often fall victim to them. It is a pattern repeated throughout history. Weapons designed to silence eventually echo back upon their masters. Violence, no matter how polished, is still violence. There's also the question of the audience. What kind of society allows such things to exist? What kind of people gather to watch a man roast inside a statue? Were they desensitized? Were they afraid? Or were they simply conditioned, taught to believe that mercy is weakness and spectacle is strength? The bull could not have existed without an audience. It needed ears to hear the roar, eyes to see the smoke, hearts to cheer the fire. The cruelty wasn't just in the flames, it was in the applause. Today, the Brazen Bull remains one of the most disturbing symbols of execution ever conceived. Museums sometimes display artistic renditions. Books recount its horror in grim detail. Documentaries describe its function with clinical detachment. But few can capture what it must have felt like to be inside, the heat closing in, the air turning to ash, the screams that weren't just cries but instruments of a cruel symphony. The victims aren't remembered by name, but the bull remembers them. Every echo, every scream, every final breath. And if there is any justice to be found in this story, it's not in the punishment, but in the remembrance. The Brazen Bull teaches us what happens when humanity is stripped away in the name of power, when we allow cruelty to be engineered, normalized, and applauded. It reminds us that progress is not just about technology, but about morality, that every time we turn pain into a show, we risk becoming the next fire beneath the bronze. Because cruelty has a way of surviving. It changes form. It adapts. It hides behind new names and new tools. But its goal is always the same: to control, to silence, to burn. The Brazen Bull may be gone, but the fire still waits for its next name.